Let's start with something most people don't realize. Muscle loss isn't just about strength. It's about your brain, your metabolism, your hormones, and even how long you live. Around the age of 30, we start losing muscle tissue about 3 to 8% per decade, and after 50, that rate doubles. That means if you're not actively doing something about it, you're losing muscle faster than you can imagine, and that's directly tied to how well you move, how you burn fat, how you think, and how you feel. But here's the good news. Muscle is incredibly responsive even later in life. In fact, you can rebuild muscle that you lost decades ago. And there's one nutritional strategy that can help you do it: eating one specific type of food once a day. This isn't some exotic superfruit or a miracle pill. I'm talking about high quality leucine, rich protein, something like a palm-sized portion of lean beef, wild caught fish chicken breast, or a high quality whey protein isolate. The key isn't just protein. It's the amino acids inside it, specifically leucine. Muscle loss is one of those changes that sneaks up on people as they age, but it's not something that happens overnight. From the moment you hit your early 30s, the body begins a gradual decline in muscle mass that most people barely notice at first. This process, known as sarcopenia, is part of what many consider normal aging, but it's not entirely inevitable. The statistics are striking. Between the ages of 30 and 50, muscle mass declines at a slow but steady rate, roughly 3-8% per decade. The real acceleration happens after 50, when the loss can double or even triple in speed. This rapid decline impacts strength, mobility, metabolism, and even brain function. The reason this happens is tied to changes in hormones like testosterone, estrogen, growth hormone, and IGF-1, as well as a decrease in the body's ability to synthesize protein efficiently. Combine that with a generally lower activity level and insufficient protein intake, and the result is a faster loss of lean tissue than the body can replace. The effects of this muscle loss go far beyond appearance. Less muscle means reduced strength, which can lead to slower reaction times, poor balance, and an increased risk of falls or injuries. Metabolically, it means fewer calories burned at rest because muscle is a high energy tissue. It's constantly demanding energy to maintain itself. Losing it means the body's resting metabolic rate slows, making it easier to gain fat and harder to lose it. Muscle is also deeply connected to glucose metabolism. When muscle mass decreases, insulin sensitivity tends to decline, raising the risk of type 2 diabetes and other metabolic disorders. What's even more interesting is that muscle is not just a mechanical tissue for movement. It functions like an endocrine organ, releasing myokines, which are signaling molecules that influence inflammation, brain health, and immune function. A reduction in muscle mass means a reduction in these beneficial chemical signals, which can accelerate aging at the cellular level. However, the narrative that once muscle is gone, it's gone forever is outdated. Modern research has shown that muscle is incredibly adaptable, even in older adults. The same biological machinery that builds muscle in your 20s still exists at 60, 70, or even 80. It's just less responsive and needs a stronger signal to activate. This is where targeted nutrition plays a crucial role. By strategically consuming high-quality protein sources that contain all the essential amino acids, particularly leucine, the older adults can stimulate the muscle-building process almost as effectively as younger people. The protein synthesis machinery in the body doesn't vanish with age. It simply requires a greater push to turn on. That means higher protein doses per meal, a focus on amino acid quality and consistency in intake. What's fascinating is that studies show that when older individuals consume enough of the right kind of protein, they can rebuild muscle mass they've lost over decades, often regaining strength, posture, and mobility they thought were permanently gone. In addition to nutrition, there's a synergy with resistance training. Exercise acts as the mechanical stimulus, telling the body that muscle is needed, while protein provides the raw materials to build it. Even light resistance work, such as bodyweight exercises, resistance bands, or light weights, can signal the body to rebuild muscle, especially when paired with protein intake soon after. This is why older individuals who combine consistent training with intentional nutrition often see transformations that not only halt muscle loss but reverse it. The visual and functional differences can be dramatic: improved muscle tone, increased energy, better joint stability, and enhanced metabolic health. Many report better sleep, clarity, and even mood improvements because muscle growth affects hormonal balance in ways that extend beyond physical strength. One of the biggest mindset shifts is realizing that reversing muscle loss is not about returning the exact body you had at 25. It's about restoring the strength, mobility, and metabolic efficiency that makes you feel and function decades younger. In some studies, Individuals in their 70s who began resistance training and adequate protein intake increased their muscle size and strength to levels seen in healthy adults in their 40s. This shows that the aging process in muscle tissue is far more reversible than most people believe. The key lies in applying the right combination of nutritional and mechanical stimuli consistently over time. Small incremental improvements compound into large, life-changing differences. This is why viewing muscle loss as an inevitable decline is one of the most damaging misconceptions in health and aging science, because it discourages people from taking action that could completely change their trajectory. Leucine is an essential amino acid, meaning the body cannot produce it on its own, and it must come from the diet, and it plays a central role in stimulating muscle protein synthesis. While all amino acids are important for building and repairing muscle tissue, leucine has a unique role as the key that turns on the body's muscle-building machinery. Inside muscle cells, there is a pathway called the mechanistic target of rapamycin, or mTOR for short, and this pathway is like a master switch for muscle growth. When mTOR is activated, the body ramps up the production of new muscle proteins, repairing damaged fibers from exercise and building new tissue. Leucine is the primary amino acid that triggers this switch, making it one of the most important nutrients for anyone looking to build, maintain, or restore muscle mass. Without enough leucine in the diet, even if total protein intake is high, the signal for muscle growth can be too weak to have a meaningful effect. Especially in older adults whose bodies are less responsive to anabolic signals, the reason leucine becomes even more critical with age is due to a phenomenon known as anabolic resistance. As the body gets older, muscle tissue becomes less sensitive to the signals that trigger protein synthesis. This means that while a younger individual might activate mTOR with a smaller dose of protein, someone over 50 might need a much larger stimulus to achieve the same response. Leucine, being the most potent activator of mTOR, can help overcome this resistance, essentially telling the body in no uncertain terms that it is time to build muscle. Research has shown that consuming a leucine-rich protein source, such as whey protein, lean meats, fish, eggs, or certain plant proteins like soy can sharply increase muscle protein synthesis, even in older populations. This effect is amplified when the protein is consumed after resistance training. As the exercise primes the muscle to respond more strongly to amino acids, one of the most fascinating aspects of leucine is how precise the dosage needs to be for optimal muscle growth. While the exact amount can vary depending on body size and muscle mass, most studies suggest that hitting a threshold of about 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine in a single meal is enough to maximally stimulate protein synthesis. For context, this could be found in roughly 25 to 30 grams of high-quality animal protein, or slightly more if relying on plant sources due to their lower leucine density. Falling short of this threshold means the mTOR switch may only be partially activated, leading to a less robust muscle-building response. On the other hand, consuming significantly more leucine than the threshold in one sitting does not seem to create a bigger effect, because the signaling pathways become temporarily saturated. Leucine's impact goes beyond just stimulating muscle protein synthesis. It also plays a role in preserving existing muscle tissue by reducing protein breakdown. This is especially important during periods of calorie restriction, illness, or inactivity, when the body might otherwise break down muscle to use for energy. By signaling the body to stay in a growth and repair mode, leucine helps protect lean tissue from being lost. This makes it valuable not only for athletes or bodybuilders, but also for older adults, people recovering from injury or surgery, and anyone trying to prevent the metabolic decline that comes with muscle loss. It is one of the reasons why leucine-rich foods are often recommended during rehabilitation programs or in clinical nutrition for aging patients. The timing of leucine intake is another important factor. Consuming a leucine-rich meal or supplement within a few hours of resistance training can significantly enhance the muscle building effect, as the muscles are in a heightened state of sensitivity to amino acids. However, even on rest days, having at least one leucine-rich meal can maintain a steady stimulus for muscle maintenance. This is why many experts recommend anchoring the day with one high-protein, leucine-dense meal, whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner, ensuring that at least once in the day, the muscle tissue receives a clear and strong anabolic signal. It's worth noting that while leucine is available in supplement form, the majority of people can meet their needs through whole food sources. Whey protein isolate is one of the richest natural sources, containing about 10-12% leucine by weight, making it an efficient option for those who struggle to get enough protein from meals. Lean meats like chicken, turkey, and beef are also excellent sources, as are fish such as salmon and tuna, Eggs, dairy products, and soy-based foods like tofu or tempeh can provide substantial amounts, while combinations of legumes and grains can help plant-based eaters reach the leucine threshold with some planning. By consistently including these foods in the diet, the muscle-building signal from leucine can be activated regularly, counteracting age-related declines in muscle mass and strength. When it comes to building or preserving muscle, the concept of the leucine threshold is one of the most important yet overlooked aspects of nutrition. This threshold refers to the minimum amount of leucine needed in a single meal to maximally stimulate muscle protein synthesis, the process by which the body repairs and builds muscle tissue. Research consistently shows that this amount is roughly 2.5 to 3 grams for most adults. Leucine is a branched-chain amino acid that acts as a trigger for the mTOR pathway, the central regulator of muscle growth. Without enough leucine, mTOR activation is weak, and as a result, the muscle-building process is suboptimal. This threshold exists because muscle cells need a strong enough signal to shift into an anabolic state, and leucine is the most potent amino acid for delivering that signal. If the amount consumed in a meal falls below this threshold, the muscle-building machinery only partially turns on, which means the gains in strength and size will be limited over time. To put this into practical terms, reaching the leucine threshold generally means consuming about 25 to 30 grams of high-quality protein from animal sources in one sitting, as these are naturally dense in leucine. For example, a 46-ounce serving of chicken breast, beef, or fish typically provides enough leucine to meet the threshold. Whey protein is even more concentrated in leucine, meaning a single scoop can provide a full dose. For those following a plant-based diet, hitting the leucine threshold can be more challenging because plant proteins tend to have lower leucine content per gram. This means larger servings or strategic combinations of plant-based proteins are needed to reach the same effect. Soy protein isolate is one of the few plant-based sources that comes close to animal protein in leucine density, but even then, it often requires a slightly higher total protein intake to meet the threshold. What's particularly important is that this threshold applies to a single eating occasion rather than the total daily intake. You could eat a large amount of protein spread across the day, but never hit the leucine threshold in one sitting, which means the mTOR pathway never fully activates. This is why people who graze on small amounts of protein throughout the day may fail to build or maintain muscle effectively, even if their total protein intake seems adequate on paper. The signal for muscle growth needs to be loud and clear, not a faint background hum. By ensuring at least one meal per day delivers 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine, the body receives that strong anabolic signal it needs to drive muscle repair and growth. Another layer to this concept is the way the body responds to repeated leucine doses within a short time frame. The muscle full effect refers to the idea that once muscle protein synthesis is maximally stimulated, additional amino acids in the following few hours don't produce further gains until the muscle has had time to reset. This reset period usually takes about 4 to 6 hours. That means if you hit the leucine threshold at breakfast and again at lunch only 2 hours later, the second meal won't have much of an added effect. This is why spacing protein-rich meals is important for maximizing growth. It also explains why one strategically timed leucine-rich meal per day can be so effective. It ensures that at least once in the day, the body gets the maximal stimulus for muscle protein synthesis without wasting the signal through poor timing. The benefits of hitting the leucine threshold extend beyond muscle size and strength. When mTOR is activated and muscle protein synthesis increases, the body also becomes better at maintaining metabolic health. Muscle tissue is a major site for glucose disposal, which means having more of it improves insulin sensitivity and blood sugar control. It also boosts the resting metabolic rate as muscle tissue burns more calories even at rest compared to fat. For older adults, regularly reaching the leucine threshold helps combat the age-related decline in muscle mass and function, directly impacting mobility, independence, and quality of life. For athletes or active individuals, it can accelerate recovery between training sessions, allowing for more frequent and intense workouts without as much risk of overtraining or injury. From a practical standpoint, hitting the leucine threshold doesn't require complicated meal plans, but it does require awareness and intentionality. For someone who trains in the afternoon, a post-workout meal with at least 25-30 grams of high-quality protein ensures that the leucine threshold is met when the muscles are most receptive to growth. For someone who doesn't train, choosing one meal each day to be particularly protein and leucine rich still sends a powerful growth signal to muscle tissue. Over weeks and months, this consistent activation compounds into measurable improvements in muscle size, strength, and metabolic health. Even in those who had been losing muscle for years before making the change, one of the most powerful ways to optimize muscle growth and preservation, especially as we age, is by understanding and working with the body's own natural signaling rhythms. Consuming one powerful leucine-rich meal daily is an approach that leverages both the biology of muscle protein synthesis and the phenomenon known as the muscle full effect. When you eat enough leucine in a single sitting, about 2.5 to 3 grams, the mTOR pathway in muscle cells is fully activated, signaling the body to enter an anabolic or growth state. This state lasts for several hours, during which the body repairs damaged muscle fibers and builds new ones. However, once this process is maximized, the machinery for protein synthesis reaches a temporary ceiling, after which adding more amino acids in quick succession doesn't increase the effect. This is why spacing out protein intake and making one meal, in particular a high leucine signal meal, can be so effective. It ensures that the stimulus for muscle growth is strong, clearly defined, and not diluted by poorly timed, sub-threshold protein feedings. The muscle full effect is like filling a glass of water. Once the glass is full, adding more water simply causes overflow without increasing the amount of water in the glass. In the same way, once muscle protein synthesis is maximally stimulated, adding more protein before the system resets won't build more muscle. The reset period generally takes about 4 to 6 hours, which means eating multiple small servings of protein in a short time can actually be less effective than focusing on 1 or 2 substantial servings that hit the leucine threshold. By structuring the day so that one of those servings is significantly higher in both total protein and leucine content, you create a single, if strong anabolic pulse that drives muscle growth and repair for several hours. Over time, repeating this daily pulse helps reverse muscle loss by consistently giving the body what it needs in the right amount and at the right time. For many people, especially those who are older or have busy schedules, the simplicity of focusing on one major leucine-rich meal each day is also more sustainable. It removes the guesswork of having to perfectly balance protein intake across multiple meals and instead centers the strategy on one targeted nutritional event. This approach works particularly well for individuals practicing intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating, where the eating window is naturally limited and meals tend to be larger. By aligning one of those meals to be a leucine-rich signal, you can take full advantage of the muscle building potential within your feeding window without having to constantly think about small protein snacks or supplements throughout the day. Another benefit of this once-date leucine signal is that it fits neatly with the way the body's anabolic sensitivity changes across the day. In the hours following a resistance training session, for example, the muscle tissue becomes more receptive to amino acids. Pairing your high leucine meal with this post-exercise window can amplify the growth signal even more. For people who train in the morning, this might mean making lunch the high-protein, leucine-rich meal. For evening trainers, dinner might be the optimal time. Even for those who are not training regularly, timing the leucine-rich meal at a consistent time each day helps the body adapt and respond predictably, which can enhance results over the long term. From a biochemical perspective, hitting that leucine threshold once a day triggers a cascade of changes that extend beyond muscle growth. Increased muscle protein synthesis supports better muscle retention, which in turn improves glucose disposal and insulin sensitivity. This has downstream effects on hormonal balance, inflammation levels, and even brain health, because muscle tissue communicates with the brain and other organs through signaling molecules called myokines. These benefits build on each other over time, creating a positive feedback loop where more muscle improves metabolic health, and better metabolic health supports further muscle growth and maintenance. The practicality of this strategy also means it can be tailored to any dietary preference or lifestyle. For someone who eats animal products, this high leucine meal might be a portion of lean beef, chicken, turkey, or fish paired with nutrient-dense sides. For someone plant-based, it might involve soy protein isolate, lentils, quinoa, and other complementary plant proteins combined in a way that achieves the leucine threshold. In both cases, the goal is the same: create one daily spike in leucine intake that is strong enough to fully activate mTOR and initiate maximal muscle protein synthesis. Over weeks and months, this repeated signal can restore lost muscle tissue, improve strength, and enhance physical resilience, particularly in individuals over 50 who are most susceptible to accelerated muscle decline even without changes to other meals. This single, powerful intervention can lead to noticeable improvements because it ensures that at least once every 24 hours, the body is given both the signal and the building blocks it needs to construct and repair muscle. This targeted approach bypasses the inefficiencies of constant, low-level protein intake that never quite crosses the threshold for maximal muscle stimulation and instead focuses energy and resources on a well-timed, potent anabolic event that the body can use to reverse years of gradual muscle loss. When resistance training is combined with leucine-rich nutrition, the results for muscle growth and restoration are far greater than what either can achieve on their own. Resistance training provides the mechanical stimulus the body needs to recognize that muscle is required. When you lift weights, use resistance bands, or perform bodyweight exercises, you create microscopic tears in muscle fibers. These small amounts of controlled damage are not harmful. In fact, they are the necessary trigger that tells the body to start the repair process. This repair process is what leads to muscle hypertrophy, or growth, as the body rebuilds those fibers thicker and stronger than before. On its own, resistance training initiates this repair, but the process cannot be completed without the necessary raw materials, which is where nutrition comes in. Specifically, leucine, rich protein, supplies the amino acids that serve as the building blocks for new muscle tissue, and the leucine itself acts as the biochemical switch to fully activate the muscle, building machinery through the mTOR pathway. The synergy between these two factors is what makes the combination so powerful. Mechanical tension from exercise primes the muscle to respond more strongly to amino acids, a phenomenon known as exercise-induced sensitivity. After resistance training, if muscle cells are in a heightened state of readiness to absorb amino acids and use them for protein synthesis. This post-exercise window, which can last several hours, is when consuming a leucine-rich meal has the greatest impact. The presence of leucine not only accelerates the repair process, but also amplifies the growth signal initiated by training. This is why athletes and strength coaches have long emphasized the importance of post-workout nutrition, and it's equally, if not more, important for older adults who are trying to regain lost muscle mass. Resistance training also influences hormone levels in ways that complement leucine's effects. If exercise stimulates the release of growth hormone, and in some cases increases testosterone and IGF-1 levels, all of which play critical roles in muscle growth and repair. Leucine works alongside these hormonal signals to direct nutrients toward muscle tissue rather than fat storage. By combining the mechanical, hormonal, and nutritional stimuli, you create an environment where muscle growth is prioritized and the body adapts more rapidly. Without adequate leucine, the post-exercise anabolic response is significantly diminished, meaning the same workout yields less progress. Without the exercise, leucine can still stimulate growth to some degree, but the effect is much smaller compared to when both are present together for older individuals or those who have experienced years of muscle decline. This combination is especially transformative because it addresses both sides of the muscle loss equation, stimulating the need for muscle through training and providing the materials and activation signal through nutrition. Even light forms of resistance training, such as using resistance bands or performing slow, controlled bodyweight movements, can be enough to initiate the process when paired with a leucine-rich meal. Over time, the improvements compound, leading to noticeable changes in strength, mobility, and muscle tone. People often find that tasks that used to feel difficult, such as climbing stairs or carrying groceries, become easier, and balance improves as stronger muscles provide better support for joints and stability systems. The benefits extend far beyond physical performance. More muscle mass supports better metabolic health by increasing the body's capacity to store glucose in muscle cells rather than allowing it to circulate in the blood. This improves insulin sensitivity and helps regulate blood sugar levels, which is crucial for preventing type 2 diabetes and other metabolic disorders. Increased muscle mass also raises the resting metabolic rate, meaning the body burns more calories even at rest, making weight management easier. This metabolic advantage is a key reason why pairing resistance training with leucine-rich nutrition is so effective for both building muscle and reducing excess fat over time. From a practical standpoint, the approach is straightforward. Train the muscles with resistance at least 2 to 3 times per week, targeting all major muscle groups. Within a few hours after training, consume a meal containing at least 25 to 30 grams of high-quality protein that delivers 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine. This could be in the form of lean meats, fish, eggs, dairy, or plant-based protein sources designed to meet the leucine threshold. For those who cannot train on a given day, still having one leucine-rich meal maintains a baseline level of stimulation for muscle maintenance, but pairing it with resistance training whenever possible accelerates progress dramatically. Over weeks and months, this consistent combination produces changes that are not only visible in muscle definition, but also measurable in strength and endurance. contributing to a more youthful, energetic, and capable body even decades after muscle loss has begun. Muscle is not just a mechanical structure for movement. It is part of an intricate communication network with the brain. Every time you contract a muscle, signals travel along motor neurons from the brain to the muscle fibers, telling them to activate. At the same time, sensory neurons send feedback from the muscles back to the brain, providing information about force, position, and movement. This constant two-way communication, known as neuromuscular signaling, is essential for coordination, balance, and reaction speed. As muscle mass declines with age, so does the strength and efficiency of these neural connections. The loss of muscle fibers means fewer motor units to control, and the brain receives less sensory feedback. This can lead to slower reflexes, reduced stability, and a greater risk of falls or injuries. Rebuilding muscle through targeted nutrition and resistance training doesn't just strengthen the muscles themselves, it strengthens the entire neuromuscular network, improving how effectively the brain and muscles work together. When muscle mass increases, the nervous system adapts to support the new tissue. The brain refines motor patterns, recruits more motor units during activity, and improves the synchronization of muscle contractions. This results in smoother, more coordinated movements. Reaction times often improve because stronger muscles can respond more quickly to neural commands, and the brain can process sensory feedback more efficiently. This is why people who regain muscle often notice they feel sharper in their movements and more stable when walking, climbing stairs, or changing direction. The improvements in neuromuscular function can also have a direct impact on athletic performance, daily activities, and overall confidence in movement. Another important factor is proprioception, the body's ability to sense its position and movement in space. Proprioception depends heavily on sensory receptors in muscles and joints, and when muscle mass and strength decline, proprioceptive ability can diminish as well. This is one reason why older adults are more prone to balance issues. Restoring muscle mass revitalizes these sensory systems, giving the brain better data to work with and improving balance and spatial awareness. For someone recovering from years of muscle loss, this can mean moving from feeling unsteady on their feet to walking with confidence again. The benefits are not limited to physical stability. Enhanced neuromuscular communication also contributes to better posture, joint protection, and efficiency in movement, which reduces unnecessary strain and wear on the body over time. There's also a hormonal and biochemical dimension to the relationship between muscle and the brain. Muscle tissue releases myokines, signaling molecules that influence brain health, mood regulation, and cognitive function. Some myokines can cross the blood-brain barrier and promote neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new connections and adapt to challenges. Increased muscle mass means greater myokine production, which can help protect against age-related cognitive decline. This connection between physical and cognitive health explains why people who maintain or rebuild muscle often report better focus, memory, and mental energy. The relationship works in both directions. The brain benefits from healthier muscles, and stronger brain-muscle signaling leads to better muscular performance. Strengthening this brain-muscle connection also plays a role in injury prevention. Quick, coordinated muscular responses are critical for catching yourself during a stumble or adjusting to uneven ground. These reflexes depend on both muscular strength and neural efficiency. As muscle is rebuilt, the nervous system becomes better at activating the right muscles at the right time, creating a protective buffer against falls and other sudden injuries. This is particularly important for older adults, as falls can have serious and lasting consequences. But the same principle benefits athletes and active individuals by enhancing agility and reducing the risk of strains or overuse injuries. The process of improving brain-muscle communication through muscle growth is not limited to elite training programs. Even simple resistance exercises, when done consistently and paired with leucine-rich nutrition, can stimulate significant improvements in neuromuscular function. Over time, the repeated cycles of muscle contraction, repair, and adaptation strengthen both the physical muscle fibers and the neural pathways that control them. This dual adaptation is why people who commit to restoring muscle often find that everyday activities become easier and require less conscious effort. The brain learns to operate the body more efficiently, conserving energy and reducing fatigue during movement. The combined effects of better balance, quicker reactions, improved coordination, and enhanced cognitive function make building and maintaining muscle a cornerstone of not only physical health, but also overall longevity and quality of life.